Hi everybody, welcome to our PAX Online panel, Passion to Profession, Interning in the Gaming Industry. My name is Stevie, and I am joined by Rachel and Ron here. We'll go by and introduce ourselves in a moment, but I did just want to introduce this panel a little bit. So we're going to be talking about our experiences interning in the gaming industry. We all have a bunch of different experience, both making games and working in esports or in marketing for games. And so we're going to touch on those experiences as well as give some tips for applying for your own internships. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself and we'll get started. But as I said, my name is Stevie. I am a film production student at the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, and I was previously the esports intern at PlayStation, and this past summer I was a social media content intern at Corsair. So we'll go on to Rachel now.
Hi guys, my name is Rachel. I am a rising senior at Carnegie Mellon University, pursuing a double major in biology and statistics. Last summer I was the events intern at Epic Games, and this summer I was the partnerships intern at Corsair.
And hey, I'm Ron. I am a first-year grad student at RIT. I did game design in my undergrad, and I have served doing teaching with ID Tech camps, as well as doing UI interning at Muse Games over the past couple of years.
Cool. Yeah, so now that that's out of the way, our first topic is going to be actually finding the internship positions and getting started on those applications. So when I started looking for internships, it kind of just fell onto me. I wasn't planning on interning in the gaming industry at all. I was actually planning on looking for film internships more related to like working on sets for different like shows and movies. But back in 2019, I was in a Discord server called Woman of Esports because I was a part of my esports club. I'm a woman, and so it just made sense. And someone actually posted the PlayStation esports internship job opening there. And I kind of just applied on a whim. I had no intention of really going forward in the process. And a similar thing happened with Corsair. I found out about it through Twitter. So both these internships I kind of found through unusual means. Usually you kind of expect to like go onto like a job posting website or knowing someone beforehand and getting the job that way. So that's how I found out about my internships.
Yeah, for me, when I was applying to Epic, I think I was just kind of searching around online. I was a sophomore at the time, so I wasn't really sure if I was like going to really go hardcore into pursuing a career in the gaming industry, or if I was just going to stick with bio and statistics. But I was just looking around online. I saw Epic Games had an events position, which I thought was really cool. You know, I had played some Fortnite, so I definitely knew what Epic Games was. And then they also came and had a recruiting event on my campus where I was able to talk with the recruiting coordinator and even give her my resume, which she eventually forwarded on to the events team. And then with Corsair, actually last summer, I had already gotten my offer with Epic. Like that happened in like February or so. And then I saw that Corsair posted about their internships last year around March. And I knew that if I, hadn't already had a job, that I would have really liked to apply for those as well. So I knew coming into this year that I really wanted to apply for Corsair's program. So I saw it in their Discord. And that's how I found out about that. But I definitely do a lot of searching on Twitter. Hitmarker Jobs is a really great spot. Even like LinkedIn and Indeed can also be great, but Twitter and Hitmarker come in handy when looking for jobs in this industry.
Definitely touching on that last point. LinkedIn and Hitmark are huge, especially for like esports startups. Um, and so definitely keep those in track. Like Stevie said, Twitter is super important. Um, if you're looking to work in the games side of stuff versus like community or esports or higher ups, definitely try and make contacts with a lot of indie studios. A lot of them do job postings through Twitter, even. So definitely, like if you're following a lot of people who do game stuff and you're communicating with them frequently on like cool projects they're working on or you're working on, things like that using social media, making those kind of connections can make a lot of things happen. I know for me, with Muse Games, they were looking for a bunch of interns for the summer because they do a lot of high school events. And so I was friends with a couple of people who worked on the staff. And so I was like, hey, I need an internship this summer in UI. Do you guys have any room on board? Or are there any projects that aren't getting worked on right now that could use an extra hand? And I was able to kind of like not necessarily make that job for me, um, because it was an idea that they were already having, but I just kind of pushed the envelope. Um, but making sure those conversations are like benevolent and open. Social media is a huge, huge help in games.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you don't have a Twitter or social media for like esports or gaming or your gaming projects, definitely recommend that. But moving on, we're going to actually talk about the application process that we went through and some tips that we have for that. So back in 2019, I think I applied to maybe 3 internships. Like I said, really was not planning on going into the gaming industry. So they were kind of just like random. But this past year, I applied to more like 5, 6, 7 different internships. Both summers, I only heard back from one. But don't get discouraged if that happens to you, if you don't hear back from companies immediately. There's always going to be something that will something will work out eventually. I know in my case, the PlayStation job, when I looked at the application, they said they were looking for business students, and I'm a film student, and so it was kind of really random that I actually applied for it. But when during the summer, they're like, "Oh, we actually hired you because we liked your major a lot, and we liked that you had this creative background because we're actually looking to do content-oriented things for esports." And so something that I thought would never come in handy for that internship actually was the reason I got hired. And it was actually the same for this past summer. During my internship, my manager said that one of the reasons I was hired was because of my screenwriting experience in my film program. So once again, something I thought I would never get hired for in the gaming industry actually ended up coming in handy. And so keep your head up. And sometimes these random little skills that you have will actually be the reason you get an internship or get a job. And I know that another point that came across a lot during both my application process and my actual internship was the fact that my club experience at school, I was part of I was a part of RIT Esports for almost 3 years. And so my experience on that production team and doing esports content really helped me get both of my internships.
Yeah, so similar to Stevie, last summer, when I was applying for Epic and all of those, I actually only applied to 2. I applied to TESPA, which is like the collegiate esports like subdivision of Blizzard Entertainment, and then I applied to the Epic Games one. And I kind of wasn't sure if I was going to go into this industry, so I was kind of like, whatever. If I get like rejected from both, I'll go home and work at GameStop or something like that. To which once I got accepted at Epic, I was like, why was I so relaxed about that? I'm like, whatever. But then this summer, so when I was working at Corsair, I kind of knew like, okay, I have a previous internship under my belt. this is more of a reality for me to go into this industry. So I definitely took it a bit more seriously. I personally started looking in September. So I really started looking early for those internships, and I probably applied to 5 or so. And with hearing back from those, I had 2 interviews. One went through a few rounds and then I got rejected. And then the other one was Corsair, and I went through all the rounds of that and eventually got an offer. So on that note, some will get back to you after months. Like some of them took like 3 months to get back to me, to the point that I was like, I guess they forgot about me. And they eventually got back in like, I don't know, if I applied in the fall, they got back in like January, or if I applied like in the winter time, they got back in like March, and they were like, sorry, we're not taking you. And then some just never responded. And that will happen. So it is really important not to get discouraged. A lot of these companies, I think, also are looking for like rising seniors in college. So if you're in high school, you might not hear anything. If you're not a junior, you might not hear anything. And I think that's like completely normal and totally okay. And it's really important not to let that deter you. So yeah.
I will say AAA game internships are very hard to get right off the bat. I know through my undergrad, I applied to maybe 40 or 50 positions during my 4 years, and I got one. There are lots of folks in my major as well who did like 200, 300 applications. But the idea, like both Rachel and Stevie said, don't get discouraged. The thing that will get you a job is perseverance. And not necessarily giving yourself do or die cut lines. Be very flexible, be very open, especially with COVID. There are lots of places that are doing internships kind of more freeform. Whereas like Epic Games and Corsair are very rigid. Like during the summer, it's a summer co-op, whatever. There are lots of like different esports teams or indie studios or what have you that are doing internships that are kind of like freeform around the clock. So, always be applying, always be hunting. It's always better to get your resume in the door earlier if you can. So if you can, keep your eye on some key jobs, like turn on LinkedIn job search notifications, things like that. So you're always kind of getting, as soon as a job comes out, you see it and you throw your resume at it. That's a super good way to do it.
Yeah, I know personally I have hit marker jobs Twitter notifications on, and kind of whenever I see one pop up on my phone that might interest me, I try to either look at it or apply. But yeah, so now that your application is all sent in, let's talk about the interview process. So when I was interviewing for my first internship, the interview process was the one thing that I had the most questions about. It was really scary. I had never done a interview for an internship or a full-time job before. I was terrified. But after it actually happened, I was a lot more relaxed. So my biggest tip for interviews is to just be yourself. A lot of times, you'll be talking to who your manager would be, and you really want your manager to get a good idea of who you are as a person, because it will definitely help grow that relationship. You can kind of casually talk. I know when I had my interview at PlayStation, I talked to one of my coworkers for about 10 minutes just about like Pokemon and like League of Legends esports, Overwatch esports. We just kind of had a casual conversation, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, I have to ask you questions." So, so yeah, just be yourself. Like I said before, talking about my club experience, and kind of relating that experience to what the internship would be. Talking about, I actually made a lot of points about how my major would influence my internship experience. So a lot of times the interviews will just have like hypothetical questions like, oh, what would you do with this? For me, it was, if we gave you 8 terabytes of CDL footage, what would you do with it? And so I kind of just talked about different content that I would make, or other things that I would do with said footage, and that's kind of what I did over the summer. Yeah, so take it away, Rachel.
Yeah, so I think being yourself is super important. Basically, all of your qualifications they're going to get from your resume. So it's really important, with your resume, you might have like a lot of previous experiences, and you should definitely make sure you highlight experiences or key things from previous positions that you did that makes you a better fit for the company. And that's like where they get all of that qualification, and they see like why you're a good fit, or why you're qualified. And then the cover letter a little bit, and mainly the interview, they get to see like, does your personality like mesh, and will you fit in like working here and working with your team? So it is super important that you be yourself. It's okay to like laugh or make a few jokes. I know for my interviews, also, like, if any of my previous managers are watching, I'm sorry, but before the interview, I like, if I knew who it was gonna be, I like looked them up on Twitter or on like LinkedIn, and I wanted to get a feel for them. Like, okay, what are they tweeting? And I knew that like, okay, my manager at Corsair, like, he is really into like D&D and like streaming and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be like chill, like we could talk about games, like he seems like I can make jokes, I don't have to feel like I need to be super like reserved or anything. It's okay to do that. Like, a lot of people look up their interviewer on social media, and they will look you up, so like it's okay. And that's like how I like kind of feel out like what the interview is going to be like. It's also super important to research the company. Like for Corsair, I use Corsair products, so it wasn't that hard for me. It's like, okay, well, I use your headset, like I use the Void, like I use your K70 keyboard, so I know a bit about your products. I know about your student program because I'm also very involved with my esports club at my school where I'm the president, so I knew a lot about what they do for collegiate, and I knew about their products. But I was applying for the partnerships position, so it was important that I also knew, like, okay, they have partnerships, like their partnerships, like, do these kind of things. And you won't know everything because you're going to learn that on the internship, but like, you have to know some things about their company. If you're going in there and you think Corsair makes games and you say that during the interview, they're going to be like, huh? Like, do you even know the basic things? So it's really important to definitely be aware of that. And also on an interview, if they ask you a question and you don't like necessarily know what the answer is, I would say just take your best stab at it. I think one of the worst things you can do during an interview is just kind of being like, I don't know, and not having an answer for them, because during that interview, I think not only do they want to see like what you know, they also want to see like how your mind works and how you think about things when you're answering those questions.
As said before, being yourself, being confident in the things that like you're good at or are learning, and being personable are super, super important. Knowing, having a baseline knowledge about the company you're working at, the projects they're doing is super important. Sometimes they'll be hiring you for a project that you don't know about, which is fine. There's lots of stuff that doesn't get spoken about publicly in lots of different places. Lots of games are secrets for a long time, so don't be afraid about that. And at this point in time, if you've gotten an interview, something on your resume or your cover letter kind of piqued an interest. A couple of my interviews with Insomniac were kind of like, why is a game designer doing graphic design? And why are you applying for a game lighting position? When your resume just has a lot of esports graphic design and some level building. And we got to talk about what my passions were about gaming and things that I've been learning and things I've been pursuing. And being able to kind of talk about those skill sets. But again, they got you in that interview because of those hard skills that you demonstrated. And so the things you always got to remember is that, like Rachel and Stevie said, you're going to be a part of the team. You're going to be, see if your personalities mesh. And so that's always super important, is like, they got you in the interview because of your hard skills. And now that you're in the interview, you got to sell your soft skills. So like, how easy you are to approach and talk to, how you handle tasks, how much of a team environment experience you've had in the past, whether it be leading teams or being a part of a multi-talented, multi-factor team, things of that nature. So always talk about, how you think you would fit in, and don't be afraid to ask questions. They're there to grill you with questions, but they're also there to answer yours. And so if you show a breadth of how to learn as well in your interview, that's also a super sought after skill. A lot of games nowadays, and especially esports, is you have to be multi-talented. I know if you're trying to be an editor in the space, you got to know how to edit in After Effects and Premiere, as well as 3D model, as well as VFX. And it's kind of a rough thing. So showing that you are eager to ask questions and eager to learn is also super, super vital.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And so when they ask you if you have any questions, like, always have questions. Even if, like, I know back in, like, February or March when I was interviewing for the Corsair position, I know I had one logistical question, which, would there be travel involved, which now thinking back to it, that was kind of a silly question, but of course I didn't know what the state of the world would be in a few months. But I also, like, even if you don't have that, like, one or two questions, like, oh, is there, like, relocation support, or, like, is there housing, or whatever, you can ask those. But also, like, if you don't have those questions, don't say you don't have questions. I think you can always ask your interviewer, what led you to this position? Why are you doing this? Why do you like working at the company? To get a feel of the company, because they're not only interviewing you, kind of as Ron said, but you're interviewing them and you're interviewing the company. You kind of want to, even if this is your only interview, your only offer, you have to see if you would fit in the company as well. And no one knows yourself better than you do. So I think asking those questions about, like, what it's like working there, or what the position is like, or even just, like, why your hiring manager is, like, interested in that kind of stuff. Like, asking all of those are all really easy questions to, like, have ready. Just, oh, why are you in this position? Or, like, what is, like, your favorite part about your job? And then you're asking those questions, and they know that you're interested and, like, ready to learn.
Yeah, that was actually one of the greatest pieces of advice that was ever given to me. That normally people really do enjoy talking about themselves. So asking questions about, like, what led them to their job, as Rachel said, stuff like that, usually leaves a pretty good impression. Anyways, we're going to be moving on to our biggest takeaways from our internships. We don't want to spend hours talking about every detail from our actual internship, but we do want to talk about the advice that we have after the fact. And so I'll start off. The biggest thing from my PlayStation internship that I took away was actually learning about corporate culture. I had never worked a corporate job before, and so I was kind of thrown into a whole new world. And I got experience that honestly probably can only you can probably only get by working in one of those corporate positions. I could sit here and talk about it for a little bit. But that was something that I wasn't expecting to learn, but coming back from it, I had a really great understanding of how everything worked over there. So it was so coming from a upstate New York small farm town, going over to San Francisco and working for the first time was a really big difference, and so I learned a lot about that. However, my Corsair internship was a little bit different. It was all remote. I was working from this very room, and I actually learned a lot about teamwork and different pipelines of communication and working working online was also a learning experience in its own. So I think each internship I've done has given me different skills to work with, and I'm grateful for both of those experiences. But we'll move on to somebody else now.
Yeah, so I would agree with Stevie. When Epic was my first kind of like paid internship, my first like job that was like really at like, you know, a big company like this. So working in that professional environment, even though like it's a bit, I would say, laid back in like the gaming industry, like I did not have to show up to work every day in a suit. Like I could wear sneakers to work if I wanted. Most of the people there wore t-shirts, so it is a little bit different in the gaming industry, but like learning how to work in that professional environment, you know, going to meetings, like, you know, working that like kind of like 9 to 5 whatever, that was definitely an adjustment, and just understanding like how you work in a team in, you know, a working environment versus like your college club. Like there's going to be a difference, and learning that was a huge takeaway for me from Epic, and also just you know, working in that team with events. There is a lot of teamwork. You have to coordinate a lot of moving things and a lot of different things all at once, so working in a team is really important for that. From Corsair, it was a bit different. I was working also from this very room. My commute to work consisted of getting out of bed and walking to my desk. So it was a little different. From Corsair, I definitely got to learn a lot about adapting to new circumstances. I think with this pandemic, we've all had to really learn how to work from home, and just really be flexible because so many things are changing. It's new for your entire team because they've never done this work from home during a global pandemic thing. And so just, you know, being able to shift and accept that those changes are going to happen. You know, for my summer was going to revolve around a lot of live events. That didn't happen. So instead I got to do, you know, a lot of like marketing stuff as well, which was really cool. But being able to shift and adapt is like really important. I also learned a lot about independence. You know, you're not going to see your boss or your coworkers around the office every day. Instead, it's going to be a Discord DM every so often that's like, oh, hey, can we have a quick chat to like talk about this project? Or a DM that's like, hey, can you work on this for me? Here's the file. So definitely learning how to be independent was also really good. And also one of the really nice things about the Corsair program is they had these things called like lunch and learns. So we got to go and talk to different people from different areas of the company. So we got to learn like about, say, like research and development, which like on a marketing side of things, like I had no idea about, or like stuff about legal. And companies like want the interns to learn, so they'll provide you a lot of opportunities. Like we got final presentations where we got to present to the CEO of the company. So like I got to talk directly to the CEO of the company, which is like pretty cool. And just like taking advantage of those opportunities is really important because they want you to learn. So they'll offer you so many opportunities to be able to learn, and it's really important to take advantage of those.
Yeah, so I realized I only said I had one internship, and that's technically true. The second was kind of a job, but only over the summer. So, if anybody has heard of ID Tech camps before, they're a kind of national summer camp company, and they do tech camps every summer at college campuses across the country. And they like to take a lot of first year, second year college students as their educators. So it's like a summer gig that you can get. And because of the breadth of their program, they take a lot of people in. So I can highly recommend it. But not only for like it being a good program to get you your foot in the door for game stuff, but also just because of how much you can learn by being a teacher. Nothing is going to make you more of an expert on a topic than being the person who has to teach it. So you can always learn a lot, no matter how skilled you are, was one thing that I kind of really took away from that, because you're going to go there and you're going to have kids ages like 12 to 18 taking your class for the summer for like 5 weeks. And you need to adapt your course to what they need and what they want. And you got to always be bringing their creative ideas into the mesh. So always being flexible, being super open-minded, and being really caring to anybody you work with or are interacting with in the industry. And then when I was interning at Muse Games, communication is like super, super vital, especially in like a smaller game studio. So always be giving and taking input. Like never get upset about criticism, and always be seeking for someone to critique you. Like constantly on every sort of thing you make. Like you can be confident, like, oh, I made this super cool thing, and then you show it off, and they're just like, yeah, well, here are small tweaks that we could think, and maybe I don't necessarily like the overall flow of it. It's like, okay, they didn't say this is garbage. That's good. Or if they say that's garbage, take that and be like, okay, my thinking was wrong, and move forward. How can I get better? So the internships are your opportunity to grow and to learn. And so take everything that you are told into account for how you can grow yourself. Because if you take their feedback and you improve upon it and you show that you're listening and that you're adaptable, that's the stuff that makes you want to get hired back. And also, one super great thing to aid in communication, to get that break the ice done, play Smash over lunch. That was every day at Muse, was 8-player Smash over lunch. The studio was in New York City in the fashion district on a food corner, so it was different restaurant every day. And then come back in for Smash. And if you're yelling at all your coworkers, how dare you downbeat me? It'll be a lot easier to talk to them about like, hey, I built this tool. What do you think? So, yeah.
Awesome. So our next topic is the aftermath of our internships. Not necessarily like the skills we took away, but just like maybe what we did immediately after they ended, going back to school or continuing to work with the company. I know for myself, I went back to film school and working, this was specifically after my PlayStation internship. I just started school 2 days ago after my Corsair internship. But after my PlayStation internship, I went back to film school and had to make films in film school, obviously. And so working in that corporate environment kind of really helped me go back to school and work on sets a little bit easier, because I struggled with like interpersonal communication before, and working in that environment all summer really helped improve that. And so I went back and was able to be on sets without feeling like I was useless or feeling like I was being left out. I could really like put myself out there and get my job done efficiently, which is something I haven't been able to do before. And after my Corsair internship, the aftermath of that was actually getting a contract to be a freelancer for them. So I am fortunately still able to work with them now after my internship is done, which is really awesome. And we'll, after I graduate in May, going to be looking to work at either of those two companies again. So
yeah, so I think after working events at Epic Games, my biggest thing, how that kind of shaped like my thoughts of like this career. Well, first of all, it was like super validating, because I was like, okay, well, I can do this career despite, I have a major in biology and statistics. Like originally I wanted to go for a PhD in like microbiology. I wanted to do disease research. Like the summer before I interned at Epic, I was staying over the summer at my school, taking additional classes, and like researching starfish. Like the summer before, I worked at like the company that made Fortnite. I was like feeding shrimp to starfish because we had to do research on them, which is like two extremely different things. So my takeaway, like my Epic really helped give me that confidence that like the gaming industry like was a viable career path. But it also showed me that even though I really like planning events, like in my like college club for like, you know, college events, doing large scale events is exhausting and probably not what I actually want to do long term. I remember when I was working there, we had one event, and that week I worked 70 hours, and then it immediately went into E3. And so the week of E3, I worked another 90 hours, and I was exhausted. And I think I realized that, you know, the fast paced bit of it was fun. I really enjoyed that, but it just was really tiring, and it made me kind of rethink that I wanted to do events. Then when I went to Corsair, so that definitely helped shape my applications for this past summer. I did apply for the events internship at Corsair, but I applied to the partnerships one because I really wanted to explore kind of other areas of, you know, the gaming industry that weren't necessarily game dev. And I really enjoyed partnerships. And then since there was all of the live event cancellations, I got to work a lot on some like go-to-market strategy. And I thought that was really fun. So now I know that, okay, now I want to actually look more into marketing, which is something that originally I didn't think I would ever do in the gaming industry. I originally kind of thought, you know, okay, I'll do like esports because I have all this club experience. So I'll do like esports management or like player management or like team management on an esports team. Or, you know, maybe I'll do events at like a big company, or I'm not really sure. And I never really thought about just straight marketing. But after working on marketing at Corsair, I discovered it's something that I actually really enjoy. And I think it's super interesting. So it was, I got a lot out of both of those. I also definitely, it kind of helped shape my perspective in that in the gaming industry, a lot of times they're not going to pay you. And, you know, there's a huge debate on like the whole unpaid work in the gaming industry. And I know that the spring of my sophomore year, so right before I started interning at Epic, I actually interned at an esports org in Pittsburgh, and they did not pay me anything. And I think that can be a good way to get your foot in the industry, but it's also really important to like know your worth. So it's like if you have skills that are of value, do not hesitate to like ask for money, make sure you're getting paid fairly, you know, like talk to the other interns at the company, you know, make sure that like you're getting what you deserve, I think is also something that's really important. And also the gaming industry is like super cool as someone who came from not really ever thinking I would be here. So I guess like one of the biggest things that those internships did is like, it's so cool to be able to tell people like you're working your dream job and you're also working like a lot of other people's dream jobs. So it's like so cool to be able to say that. And it's really awesome.
For me, coming out of my internships, each one just kind of helped me develop like what skills I had and where I wanted to go. When I went to college, I wanted to be a level designer. I loved Unreal Engine and Unity, and I was like totally all about environments, and then, you know, teaching game modding in Team Fortress 2 and Dota 2 and Unity, C# and all that sort of stuff at ID Tech camps. I started to learn, okay, so scripting is fun. You know, I'm getting down with that. And then I also enjoyed all these modding tools. So like the level stuff and the lighting was also super fun. So maybe I'll try a lighting internship or a level design internship. And then I did the RIT esports stuff and started to find graphic design and UI, and did my internship at Muse Games doing UI. And I took every one of those skills to build upon my knowledge base and to continue taking those things and making things with that knowledge. Because one of the biggest things that gets people noticed, especially on social media, is making your own stuff. I took the knowledge I had doing UI and Unity, and I said, okay, how can I reinvent streaming for esports using this tool set. And so that's for me doing that. But I know that there are tons of like character artists and level designers who are on Twitter every portfolio day throwing their stuff out, getting 30,000 likes and retweets, because their stuff gets shared around. And one thing that people don't tell you is fan art will get you noticed. Like if you're a huge Star Wars fan, like making your own Star Wars project should hopefully get you noticed by people at Star Wars. It's like people kind of say like, oh, critique you, how dare you just make somebody else's IP your art. But if you really want to work on something, like work on Halo or work on Star Wars or do whatever else, like tailor your projects to that. Say like, yeah, I'm your guy because I've already done it. So that's all super, forge your own path sort of stuff like that.
Yeah, and as we kind of mentioned earlier, going back to the company that you internshiped at, make sure if you do an internship, make sure you ask for a return offer. It's never going to hurt. The HR team that is running the internship is going to tell you to do it. Everyone's going to tell you to do it. I know myself, I was like, I don't want to seem like a bother. I don't want to put them in an uncomfortable situation. And then just do it. Like, it's not going to hurt you. At PlayStation, they straight up told me, they're like, yeah, we don't hire interns for a second year, but you can come back when you're done with college. I was like, okay. And then Corsair actually really funny. I was going to ask for a return offer, but like the very same meeting I was going to ask for it, my manager was like, yo, we got something for you. So it literally doesn't hurt at all. The worst thing that can happen is they say no, and then you just move on. Then it's not going to change their opinion of you at all. That's kind of what I thought. I was like, oh, they're going to think I'm like being bothersome or needy or whatever. It's just me overthinking like this. And I know a lot of people feel the same way that I do. But just do it. Just ask for the return offer. But yeah, and no one else has anything to say. Rachel?
Yeah, I think going on to Stevie's point, like, definitely ask for a return offer. Like, it's really scary. It's like terrifying asking for one because you're like, oh, what if they didn't actually like me? Like, oh, like what if they say no? Or like, oh, what if I like ask for a return offer and they laugh at me? Like, what if they just like laugh that I would ever have that notion? Like, no, most companies, like, which is also why they prefer people who are going into their senior year of college, like, is like an extended interview. Like, they're spending like 3 months basically training you so that you can potentially come back. It really all comes down to like, assuming like, you did a good job and they're happy with all the work that you've done, which they probably would be. It really just comes down to like, do they have a spot? Because when you're brought on as an intern, like, the kind of thought is we're putting all of our resources into you so that you can come back to us and be a really great worker. So asking for a return offer is like always really important. And sometimes it will lead to like contract work throughout the year, especially now because remote. So it's pretty easy to transition you from remote to still remote, but located at your school instead of your house or something like that. So that is definitely super important.
Yeah, I would say indie games. Just like one last small point. It's easier, I guess, for those larger teams like PlayStation and Corsair to be able to offer those. I know from Muse Games, they weren't even tracking it until I brought it up. So like, yeah, the whole thing of just like do it. If you felt like you left a good impression, like no is not a bad answer. So.
Awesome. Yeah, so our time is coming to an end, but we do just want to talk about a couple cool things about the companies we worked at, in case you were curious, and some fun stories we have from our internships. But I know, so unfortunately, Rachel and I were unable to actually be in the Corsair office this past summer, but we are planning on visiting, hopefully, once this whole world-ending situation is over, if it ever ends. But back when I was at the PlayStation office, it was, if you ever looked up pictures of the San Mateo PlayStation office, it's really cool. I recommend looking it up. It's sick. But other than working in the office, they were really great, and they had really frequent intern events. Most notably, we got to go to a MLB game. We were given food credit so I could eat all the baseball game food in the world that I wanted. And it was conveniently placed on my birthday. They didn't plan it that way, but I like to think they did, maybe. And it was just really cool because, like the San Francisco, don't hunt me down, but I don't remember the name of the San Francisco baseball team, even though I went to that game. 49ers, is that it? No, that's football.
Is it the Giants?
Giants. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. Okay,
I'm a huge baseball person, but yeah, I could be.
I'm gonna get roasted. I only know esports. I'm sorry, but we went there, and the stadium is actually sponsored by PlayStation, so it was really cool to see our company's logo big on the screen, and then have all of us in our PlayStation gear sitting there. That was a ton of fun, and my birthday was actually happening that day, and my team got me a cake and all sang to me, and it was really cute. But those are some fun memories from my time there. And working at Corsair is also really fun, even if it was remote. The HR team did a really great job of bringing all the interns together no matter what, and we're all still really great friends even after the internship. We all talk every day, so it's really fun.
Yeah, the Corsair intern crew definitely got really close, even though you're remote. So, which is a good point into the internship is what you make of it. If you take advantage of those opportunities, you're going to learn a lot. If you don't, you're not going to learn a lot. If you try and make friends with the other interns, you will. And you'll have some really great friends. We all still play, Valorant, every night. So we're all, still really close. At Epic, it was in person, which was nice, which meant we got free breakfast and free lunch every day. There was, a ton of free food. There was just snacks everywhere. It was pretty amazing. I never had to, buy food. It was awesome. They also had a slide and a rock wall, which not all companies have that, but it was a nice perk. I went down the slide once. It's pretty terrifying. You actually go down, really fast, and you, kind of come to a really abrupt stop. It's kind of scary, but I did it. I didn't do the rock wall. And then Corsair has, we never got to see the office. I watched an office tour video when I was getting excited about the idea that maybe I'd get to go. But they have a game room with a bunch of really good PCs. I mean, it's a PC company. Of course they have really good PCs in their game room. But they have a really cool game room. And even though we didn't get to go in, they did offer us a nice discount, which was very nice because I could stock up on all of my Corsair components. So that was super nice.
I don't know if I have too many funny stories. I think I said it, but the Muse office was on the corner of a food street in New York City, so that was always super fun. Just strolling down, getting walk to walk with the guys, and then come back up to play Smash. ID Tech Camp has lots of funny stories. Anybody else who's ever taught knows how adventurous and how ridiculous diploma night is. I think my team actually, one of our guys who was doing Minecraft programming, he built a dip machine, which is effectively you have a Google form and you're okay, kid name, kid project. It was effectively a Mad Libs. for your students' diplomas. None of us used it, but it was a really funny project. But yeah, that.
I have one story.
Ooh.
Well, it's not really a story, but this is why going to gaming conventions and events is really kind of helpful and important. Not mandatory, because obviously, like, not everyone can make it out. But I actually got to meet my coworker and my manager at PAX. So I met my coworker in 2019. He was going to West Virginia University. I was in Pittsburgh. We both flew home on the same, like, really late flight. And I saw someone in the airport, like, I was waiting for my Uber, and I saw someone in the airport, like, with, like, Corsair stuff on. So I was like, oh, you must have been coming from PAX. And he was like, oh, I was. And we, briefly chatted. We added each other on Discord. We were both active in our esports clubs. So, we chatted briefly and whatever, went on our way. Then when I was interviewing for the partnerships position, someone who had been an intern the previous year was like, oh, do you know this person? He went to West Virginia and he works there now on that team. And I was like, well, I only know one person from West Virginia. Don't really remember his name. Met him like a year ago. And so it couldn't be the same person because I only know one person from West Virginia. And then they were like, oh, it's this guy. And then I checked Discord since we had added each other. And I was like, oh, I do know that guy. That is the one person from West Virginia that I do, in fact, know. So I messaged him and we talked about, kind of what the position was like. He actually, my coworker interned 2 years prior. And so he got to told me a lot about, like, what his internship experience was like. And that was really nice. And then I also got to meet both him and my, like, hiring manager / boss at PAX East in 2020. So they were both working at the Corsair booth. I was in the internship process. I also really liked Corsair. I knew the person who did the collegiate programs at Corsair. So of course I'm going to stop by the booth. I knew a lot of their student ambassadors. So I have a lot of friends over there. So I was, like, hanging out at the booth all the time. And I got to see my coworker again, who I met a year prior, and I got to meet my boss and actually talked to him. And I was still kind of in process, but he told me there that, that I was gonna like what I was gonna hear. So I got a little preview of what was to come. And I got to actually have, like, an in-person interaction with them because I go to gaming events. And I think also just gaming events in general. I've been going to PAX East for 8 years. I've been to PAX West once. They're a really great way to, like, network and meet people, and those people might end up hiring you one day or working with you. So it's really nice to get to, like, meet all those people at those gaming events.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too long on it, but I had a similar event happen when I went to PAX 2019. I hung out with Rachel. It was fun. We went to the Corsair PCMR PC building event, and I didn't know at the time, but I met most of my coworkers there, and so I included it in my cover letter, and they're like, oh yeah, we were there. We were working the event. So that was a lot of fun. But we are coming to the end of our time, so we do want to thank you for joining us on this panel. As you have seen probably, we are in Twitch chat, answering questions, chilling out. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best of luck with applying to internships in the next year. Hopefully we are able to go back to work normally so that you can have all these really great in-person experiences. But yeah, good luck, and have a great rest of your PAX Online experience.
Thanks for watching!